I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Through the gates of Mount Rome, down to the far corners of the endless highway, wherever you are, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Welcome, new listeners. Old listeners, of course, welcome back. New listeners, stick around. Put me in your rotation for 2025. Follow the show. Let's figure out some of the missing puzzle pieces and uncover some hidden history. For instance, Rise of Nazi Occultism is up now on Patreon. Link for that is below. Check that out. Help support the show. And aside from that, welcome to the Drone Wars. Drone Wars. I think about a sci-fi dystopian movie like Blade Runner, where they have the little part in the beginning where the girl comes in the year 2024, the most densely populated place on Earth was affected by what is now known as the Drone Wars, or something like that, because New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the U.S. I find that significant, first of all. I wasn't even going to cover this, but I think I might have something new to say. Plus, I think this is shaping up to be a historical event that might fizzle out as an unsolved mystery. Maybe like a Roswell or a Mothman, or a story like that that's never really ever resolved fully. Almost like it's never meant to be fully understood. But before we start, let me just throw out some opening thoughts here. I want to remind people there is a big secret club of Black project programs constantly happening in this country, and a lot of it is out of the reach of government oversight, especially state government. Sometimes federal, yeah, especially out of reach of state government. It's like we're seeing a lot of that right now, where either these people in state government are totally puppets and are just acting dumb because they're being told to act dumb, or they're just not being told what's really happening higher up. Because there's a privacy wall when it comes to these aerospace companies. They are behind a wall that is this military industrial complex. Aerospace, I put into that. And there's many divisions of those companies. These are private businesses who do government contracts. There are loopholes in the system where people high up in government on that federal level can create and fund Black projects. Every now and again, one leaks, but for the most part, the public generally has no idea that it's even happening or that it ever happened at all. And in addition to that, the government, especially state government, they don't always know everything the aerospace people are up to, especially in those tech labs. I think about the movie Batman. You guys remember Wayne Industries? They had that secret development wing, that separate section in that company that built his Batmobile, right? And his anti-gravitational Batcraft. I think similar situation in real life is happening where programs like that exist in the aerospace world. And some of them have these military contracts, and that's how the military is involved ultimately, somewhat, because they get their gear and their tech from these aerospace guys. And there's always a bid war between these companies for who gets the contract, because there's a lot of money involved with those. But at the end of the day, there are shell companies beneath these larger umbrella companies. And it's just honestly a big compartmentalized web. I think it's crucial to understand as well that these aerospace companies who do our government's secret bidding have been in the business of drones and drone technology and drone warfare for years. I've seen, I've talked to aerospace people, I've seen leaked drone footage personally of some of the stuff they have, and they know they're drones. And I think the stuff I saw was 10 years ago, and it was pretty advanced. It was very advanced. Military, aerospace. They've also been rather quiet lately, other than maybe muddying some of the waters. For instance, that old guy who came out on TikTok saying, "Oh, I'm not much of a TikTok guy, but these drones are operating at night because they're looking for missing bombs from the Ukraine, missing nukes from the Ukraine," he may have actually said. That rumor, that guy is an aerospace guy. I see that coming directly out of the aerospace world. Go figure, right? And I'm just throwing this out there as something to think about. I'm not going to blame all of aerospace. It's a big, big world. I know people think of Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop Grumman. I'm not even implicating those people. I don't even know if they're involved. I think aerospace is much bigger than that. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was a rogue branch of an aerospace company, possibly with military back channels. Wouldn't be surprised at all. It's not my final answer, but I think it needs to be on the table for consideration. And someone in military clearly has orders not to shoot these down. Yet the military and this administration seems to be playing dumb. But there is this, I really wanted to focus on aerospace because there's an extensive history there of just weird, shady stuff, which I'll probably touch on more today. And by the way, I'd also include NASA in with aerospace. They have roots in Project Paperclip and the Nazis. That stuff goes deep and it's nothing new. They've been shady for the entirety of their existence. I'll include Space Force in aerospace as well, although they might not be as shady so far. But even if the aerospace companies aren't involved in this drone thing, they do have this kind of tech. And so does the military. You see, like aerospace and military, they go hand in hand. They provide things for each other. And I'll say this, not all people in aerospace are bad. I know some people personally in that world, they're cool. They're good people, but there are bad actors and big secrets that no one really talks about in that world, coming out of that world. So let's start this from the top because this gets crazy. This gets way crazier than what they're telling you, down to the language itself, like coded reality stuff. I mean, I'll get into it. I think I first heard about the New Jersey drones and didn't look into it initially. The Then people started texting me, and then just asking me, "Hey, what do you think?" or "Have you seen this New Jersey drone stuff?" Then my friend sent me a picture of the healthcare CEO shooter. It was a picture of his fake ID, and his address on the fake ID was Maplewood, New Jersey, which was at that time a city experiencing this drone stuff. I thought that that was interesting. I just want to throw that in because it, this shooting thing somehow in a weird way is on this timeline. It's like running parallel with this incident. So I'm just throwing it in. I'm not saying the shooting is involved, but it's basically on the timeline. So back to the drones though, I traced it back to the beginning and found that this started back before Thanksgiving. November 19th was one of the first sightings. The Morris County Prosecutor's Office in New Jersey said drone activity was being observed by law enforcement members on patrol. And by the way, Morris County is 30 miles west of New York City. Then, November 22nd, the Federal Aviation Administration issued a temporary flight restriction in Bedminster, New Jersey. They placed that restriction from November 22nd to December 6th for, they said, special security reasons. And they said that no unmanned aircraft systems were authorized in the region. This this one is what brings Trump into it, because this is a restricted area where he has his one of his residences in it. It's on a golf course. It's Trump's Bedminster golf course. And I think I even heard a clip of him saying in a press conference that he wasn't going to stay there while this was happening. So, November 25th, FAA issues a temporary flight restriction over Picatinny Arsenal Military Base in New Jersey from November 25th to December 26th. They just went ahead and slapped it down for a month, that restriction. I'm throwing this in because this is indication that something is happening, right? That's Something is happening here. Then we get to December 3rd. The FBI starts investigating officially the drone sightings, and they asked the public to report any information related to the sightings. And I think they used the words possible drones flying in several areas along the Raritan River. This is very interesting because the Raritan opens up into a big bay of, and then from there, it's just the Atlantic Ocean. So this river flows straight into the Atlantic, basically. So that's a direct link to the ocean. And I see this as a link to the claims that are being made that these drones are coming from the ocean. Why Jersey? Like I say, I don't know, but still, something is just bugging me about the fact that it's the most densely populated state in the US. And it's close to the water. Those are two big factors here, I think. Also on November 3rd, I'm sorry, December 3rd, the FBI, Newark, and the New Jersey State Police are asking the public to report any information related to the recent sightings of the drones. So I see this significant because now it's the town or the city of Newark, along with the FBI, along with the New Jersey State Police. So this is building. And I see this significant because, like I say, it's the most populated state. You have the FBI asking the most populated state for help. I just thought about that because the FBI usually only requests help from the public in manhunts, in my memory, or when they don't have a handle on the situation. December 3rd is also the Cliff High prediction, which I'm about to go into. But basically, I think I mentioned weird language in this thing, and you'll see that throughout this. I'll point it out when I can, but basically, there's weird language and happenings involved with this drone thing that I think ties into these Cliff High projections from 2009. Basically, in a nutshell, and I'm going to go deeper into this and explain this for you, but basically, where we're at on the timeline right now, December 3rd, it happens to be 39 days after October 25th, which was the Trump Rogan interview, which was like foretold in this Cliff High prediction. So December 3rd, this is the date where I see this thing start to veer heavily into the weird. And the next day is December 4th, which is the CEO's death. If that's somehow involved, which I don't know. Is this Luigi guy involved with this on some sort of a cosmic level? Because the guy's coffee at McDonald's was $2.86. And then all these other 286s show up around him in this case on social media. And there's always a synchronicity code to these events. 9/11, Vegas shooting, you start to see the same, Uvalde, you start to see the same numbers popping up. I just find it interesting. On December 9th, the mayors of 21 towns in New Jersey write a letter to Jersey Governor Phil Murphy demanding action. They call for a full investigation into the drones. The quote they used was to determine the origin, purpose, and compliance with applicable regulations. Then on December 11th, the Pentagon debunks claims. I saw the press conference. The lady got up and she said that the mysterious drones flying over New Jersey were not an Iranian mothership. Of course, those claims were made by New Jersey Representative Jeff Van Drew. He made a public statement that Iran had sent a mothership over here somewhere over the Atlantic. They had released these drones. Of course, that's an act of war. That's You don't just throw that out there. So the Pentagon publicly addressed that and addressed this senator. And this just goes on from here. This timeline does. Clearly, unless they're playing stupid, clearly many people in government have no idea what's going on, like this senator. If that Iranian drone thing is not true, this guy has no idea what's happening. And Iranian mothership, that's a weird term. That's what I'm talking about. You get this weird language coming out of these events all the time. There's a there's a lot of hype here. I want to go through a little bit of the timeline just to show that where there's smoke, there's fire. Something is happening here. There's a girl on YouTube I started following who, I don't know, maybe she's got 500 followers. It's a very small channel, but she's posting videos of drones flying over her New Jersey neighborhood. They're low. There's no airport nearby. They take weird, sharp turns like they're following the streets, like they're on a flight path that mirrors like the grid work of the town below, essentially. And they look they don't fly like UFOs, they don't fly like orbs, they fly like drones. but they take these weird flight changing paths. That's how you say that. Like they're on a they're going straight and then they change weird. Mechanical. Like it's programmed, like Google Earth maybe or something like that. I'm just thinking out loud here. So the Cliff High prediction. This is where it gets weird. Basically, he's a guy who's made predictions in the past. I've heard him on podcasts before, and some of his predictions have actually came true or come about. He predicted that the 2008 housing market crash was going to happen. He made some predictions that indicated the rise of Bitcoin. He said something big was going to happen around the time of 9/11. He put forth a window where something big was going to happen, like global shift, like a global shift. And I don't remember the term he used, but something like that. And right in the middle of that window of time was 9/11. He built basically how this is happening is he's like a tech guy. He built this web bot that generates these predictions. The web bot scours billions of online conversations looking for this unusual verbiage on the internet, like this out of the normal type of talk, like weird words and phrases, like Twilight language. It keys in on these weird phrases that pop up, like not normal language people would normally use, like stuff like Iranian mothership, right? And it tracks other forms of emotionally charged language that's kind of stands out of the norm. It takes that data and comes it churns out like a script of future events. He believes that the data that he's gathering taps into humanity's collective unconscious and it hints at these future events, almost like dreams, like dream premonitions. And I've had those dreams where I have deja vu the next day because what I dreamed about last night, which I don't remember until I'm in my car passing, I don't know, something that's out of the norm. And I'm like, oh, I saw this in my dream last night. I saw this lady with the green bag, right? With like a a monkey on her shoulder or something like that. Something weird, something weird. Maybe that's not the best example, but I've had those dreams like that center around deja vu. Like in the Matrix movies, there's a scene about, I think it's a rat in like an old motel with Neo and Morpheus, and like it's about a deja vu glitch in the Matrix. I see parallels to that with this Cliff High stuff. So this is where it gets weird. In, like I said, in 2009, he predicts that Joe Rogan would interview Trump about running for president, and that 39 days later, something UFO-ish, something strange in the skies would happen. He said it would be stuff dealing with UFOs versus military, and that no one would know what was going on. And at the time, the prediction didn't make much sense because it's 2009. Rogan was just starting his show. He had started, but it had just started. And Trump wasn't in politics yet. So, and also the web bot said that it would be an interview on a well-produced show that's not a TV show, because at the time this web bot didn't have the term podcast yet to use. But it's describing this new thing that's like right around the corner for humanity. This sensation that is podcasting. It's describing it the best way it can. But so it didn't make sense in '09. Nonetheless, he puts the prediction out. 20 in 2022, he revisits the prediction and he brings in a remote viewer and has the remote viewer look at the case. And the remote viewer describes some of the things that are going to happen, but also draws a sketch of what appears to be Rogan talking to Trump. And this was all internet lore for 15 years until it started happening in real life recently. And this is what appears to be happening. And I think Cliff believes in aliens. I think he believes that this event will kick off some type of connection point with them and humanity where they're going to start giving us knowledge. Almost like there will be infighting within the government agencies, and somewhere along the timeline there, the deep state loses power and the aliens kind of step in and help humans. I think, if I understand correctly, that's kind of where he sees us going. And those aren't my ideas, of course. That's his stuff, but still throwing it in because it's interesting. Because this is such a curious case. And I've studied some crazy cases. When you have strange stuff happening in the sky, you often get, in the media especially, this arbitrary twilight language of these obscure words and terms. Exactly the type of unusual terms that apparently Cliff High's webbot is using to make these future predictions. But we hear these kind of terms a lot. We just don't pick up on them. We're not taking note of them. We're not like putting them up on our blackboard or our whiteboard like a conspiracy theorist in the dark with the windows like newspapered over and thinking, what does this all mean? But we hear these terms, right? We hear them a lot from media. I've said it already, Iranian mothership. That's a weird term. Source of unknown frequency is one I heard. Missing radioactive material. Drone sniffing bombs, or drone sniffing for bombs is one I think I heard recently. Just weird language, right? For the most part, I think that language, especially in cases like this, are a distraction. Some of it feels like it's being propelled forward from somewhere in the shadows of the deep state or aerospace. And if you go deep, even deeper than that, sometimes the language is like this weird extension of the phenomenon itself. You find it in the Mothman prophecy. Things were happening like they were kind of playing out a weird script. So that's what I look for. There's always weird jargon. I always keep my eye out for it. Mothman kicked off in 1966. There was some weird jargon there. But also, a great example is the Michigan Lights. That was also in 1966. And the term swamp gas emerges, who J. Allen Hynek used to try and ice over this whole incident that was happening up there. Of course, at the time, he was a mouthpiece for the Air Force. So it's PSYOP language. And it's weird. Swamp gas. It's this twilight, arbitrary stuff that you don't hear in everyday life. And that, by the way, that Michigan 1966 event, that was a very real incident where a lot of people were seeing, in this case, UFOs of some sort. But history remembers this dumb phrase, swamp gas. Flying saucer itself, it was a new and odd term that is like an extension of the phenomenon. Like I'm saying, a pilot in 1947, he saw some weird crafts, Kenneth Arnold. He said the way that they flew, he said they hovered like saucers skipping across a lake. Like, I guess if you took a plate and you, instead of skipping a rock over the lake, you just skip the plate. Like the way it moved he didn't know because this was 1947. He's trying to describe to this journalist or somebody from the press how these weird UFOs were flying. So that was his way of painting that picture. And but the media did the rest. They came up with the term flying saucers. And by the way, I'm not saying that these drones are necessarily extraterrestrial. I'm just saying just don't get played by the language. I've researched propaganda probably more than I even want to admit. And I'm just saying pay attention to the language. And also, there was a 9/11 call I heard where the guy said he was reporting drones in the area and that the drones had stopped at a solar panel farm and were sucking the power from the solar panels. That reminded me of UFO cases. That one did for sure. Just because that's some very high level technology. And I'm not saying that that was a UFO. I'm just saying anyone who's saying that this isn't weird, like that guy on CNN saying they're just planes, don't listen to those people. Clearly, they're not. There, there's some high technology involved here. I've got a quote here from a New York Post journalist who went to Jersey and reported seeing one. He said, if this is not our military, then it's even more scary. This was a guy named McHugh. He said, these things look like they are fixed winged and have multiple lights. I'm not really sure how to process what I saw last night. Both the photographer who was with me and I were kind of stunned. This is a weird thing to say about a drone. And this McHugh, he was there as a part of a bigger story that was kind of uh, unraveling, where you had this local New Jersey police chief who took it upon himself to send up a drone to kind of chase after these mystery drones because they were coming in from over the ocean. That's the whole thing here. They were the chief said it, the journalist said it. This whole story, the big takeaway is that these things were coming from over the ocean. That makes me wonder if they aren't somehow popping out of the water, as weird as that might sound. Then there's this representative, Chris Smith, who said in a House Homeland Security meeting that he went out on a beach in Ocean City, New Jersey, because all the police were telling him that they had seen 50 drones come out from over the ocean there as well. Other people in the National Guard said the drones were following their boats around out there, their Coast Guard boats. And Ryan Graves, has said publicly that his sources are saying that they came out from over the ocean as well, possibly popping up from out of the water. He did allude to that recently on Joe Rogan, which I listened to that. I haven't been listening to a lot of Rogan lately. I think that there are really great shows out right now, smaller shows. But I got some of my analytics back from Spotify for 2024, and it told me what a lot of you guys are listening to, like your top shows. It's like, and Rogan was one of the shows. So I saw that. I realized, okay, it looks like from the analytics, it looks like a lot of you who are listening to this show also listen to that one. So it made me think maybe I should go, listen to some more Rogan. So I went and I looked. I was like, all right, what's he put out lately? And so I listened to this Ryan Graves interview, and all over the well, okay, it's complicated with him, in my opinion. I think the first half of that episode, his overall message seemed to be that these are probably civilian drones that our government needs to like step in and regulate. That seems to be what he was hinting at in the first half. So I'm very curious about that. And then I remember Graves is a aerospace guy. He comes from that world. And like I say, not all the aerospace guys are bad. It's just something to note. And I'm not trying to skewer Ryan Graves at all, at all. But I have to wonder. These are the days where we have to put everybody's feet over the fire a little bit, right? And I have to wonder, is that first half of Rogan, is that what he really thinks, or is that just what he's supposed to say, right? Because not only does he come from the aerospace world, he represents the military too when he gets up and does these huge speaking engagements like the Joe Rogan podcast. He's supposed to be this UFO guy who tracked UFOs for the military. And he's talking about stuff coming out over the water, but he's in the process, he's hinting at the need for the government to regulate because they're probably civilian. That confused me. And I've heard this stuff before in the old Admiral Byrd interviews from the 50s, where you can tell that he's trying to adhere to a script. He's trying to do what the military wants him to do and say what they want him to say, like J. Allen Hynek in that 1966 Michigan encounter incident. And no offense to Graves, but it's confusing rhetoric sometimes. I hear it. It's confusing rhetoric that I heard coming from these guys in the past who were these sort of figures of fringe like Admiral Byrd. And it's confusing because it's showing back up again right now from these disclosure guys. You can tell that they hold back from what they're really thinking. And they sometimes opt for, instead of saying what they really think, they opt to go the other way and say what they're, I think, supposed to say. And I'm not trying to slam these guys at all. We just gotta put them back on their heels a little bit, test them a little bit, right? That's why I don't mind saying this publicly because it's not shots fired towards Ryan Grave on my part. It's not anything like that. I'm not coming for him. Like it's nothing like that. But anyways, I think you guys get the point. And I was already thinking, well, let's just take it to this. He's saying that they possibly came out of the water as well. That's interesting, right? And I was thinking that they came out of the ocean myself. And I'll tell you why. The jellyfish footage that Jeremy Corbell released last year, around this time actually, it came up out of the ocean and it looked like a drone, except it looked like a Star Wars drone, like from Hoth, from The Empire Strikes Back. Still don't know why they called that thing a jellyfish. I guess because it has a domed head and it came up out of the water. That's the only jellyfish thing I can think of. But this thing looked like that. It looked like somebody grew up watching Star Wars and said, let's make that thing from the ice planet. That's like the drone, not like the Yeti Bigfoot, like the drone. And we got to remember stuff like that. Like, what if this is the same technology? I'm saying that jellyfish footage, that drone, I'm calling that a drone. I don't know what it was, but whatever that was, what if that's the same thing that we're seeing here over New Jersey, made to look a different way, made to look less threatening and less like a traditional drone. And that jellyfish thing that had an invisibility cloak. If you go back and find that footage, you'll see as it's going over a military base, of course, you'll see it'll be black. And depending on what it passes by, it'll change its color. almost like an octopus would. And it looks, and it'll go clear. So that's why I say it looks like it had an invisibility cloak. And you're hearing something similar to these New Jersey cases as well, with authorities saying stuff like, once you get eyes on them, they go black. Like they have some sort of invisibility function to them. Beyond that, when you factor in this water thing again, they might be transmedium drones that can do air and water. And I'm talking about the ones in New Jersey right now, of course, that they might be transmedium. There's a patent out for that, actually. There's a guy named Salvatore Pais who is an aerospace engineer who works for Space Force. He has a patent out for inertial mass production for transmedium craft and transmedium drones. I'm just saying there is possibly an aerospace connection here, like SpaceX. They have a relationship with Space Force. SpaceX stores a lot of their stuff on the Space Force military bases. That's a private company with military clearances. That needs to be on the table for consideration that this stuff happens, right? Some reports, people said their phones weren't able to record video of the drone, like it's blocking their camera from working. And there's a story here from Mike. I'm going to maybe mess up his last name, Gasali. He's the mayor of Montville, New Jersey. And I'm going to go pull that up real quick. Basically, while I'm pulling this up here, this guy is saying that the drones abducted civilian drones. Let's see here. Here's the story here. Mike G. I already messed up his last name enough, I think. Mayor of Montville, New Jersey reports that civilian drones were hijacked and disappeared after attempting to approach a mystery drone. A highly respected, professional, and trustworthy Montville resident informed me, this is the mayor speaking, with 100% certainty that his son's hobby drone attempted to follow one of the drones and it was drone jacked. He lost control of his drone and it went disappearing into the air. It seems these are very sophisticated drones with counter offensive systems. Drone jacked. Haven't heard that one before. Maybe that's some more of that weird language. And there are accounts of people trying to fly drones and approach these other drones, and they're reporting that their full brand new batteries drain instantly. And that's something you see a lot in paranormal cases, but it could be a feature that these mystery drones are just implementing so that they can't be flown up to by what they would consider an enemy or an unfriendly or a foreign drone. But, there is, I guess, that possible paranormal tie-in. I these days I don't rule anything out, I suppose. Also, one family in New Jersey reported the clock in their car going out. And I've heard that before from UFO reports that I've taken personally. There was one here in Tennessee that I'm thinking about where the person saw a UFO and they're in their car, they're on the interstate, and their Sirius XM radio like glitched out for a second as this thing went by. And of course, after it goes by and as they get a little further up the road, the radio comes back on. And we're having activity in Tennessee. I I've seen what I think is one. on the weekend of the 13th. The I was out over Gallatin, no, Ellington. I was going towards downtown Nashville, and I wasn't driving. I was in the car with somebody, and I saw something coming towards me from downtown, almost with the skyline behind it. It looked like a little plane, and it had the red and the red light. One side was, I'm sorry, one side was green, one side was red. And I'm like, I was thinking this was at night, and I was thinking to myself, what is that little plane doing out here? Because I've traveled that road for 7 or 8 years now, and I don't usually see planes. There's not a flight path there because it's so close to these buildings. It just looked odd. I kept looking at it, and I just thought, I'm in Tennessee. Surely that's not one of these drones. But I got an email the other night, or I found an email from the listener the other night, and they said that they were seeing them over in Bellevue as well. And what's interesting is the next, in the following days after I saw that drone, I had a mandatory phone update. My phone, I didn't allow the update to go through. It did it itself, and it did it 4 or 5 times. That's very concerning because I don't usually do a lot of updates. I certainly didn't allow that to happen. That's concerning, right? Also, these things aren't being picked up by radar. That's something that could put us in the realm of UFO involvement. And there were UFOs reported by pilots in Eugene, Oregon last week. I listened to the air traffic report. I listened to the recording of this pilot and air traffic control. They said that what they saw was flying in a corkscrew pattern. And one of the guys at air traffic control straight up called them UFOs, straight up. So there's that going on too. And I'll admit, guys, honestly, I was at one point, I was kind of torn between is this, our military chasing around something UFO related or orb related? Or is it not being picked up on radar because it's some of this high aerospace black ops tech? I was kind of torn between the two here, but I really think that the last one needs to be on the table for sure. That this is something that was, human made and human controlled. And again, there are private aerospace companies who operate with impunity and have done so for a long time. I'm gonna pause this real quick. Oh wait, no, never mind. I thought I was hearing I was hearing gunshots, but now I can tell that they're fireworks. Somebody's setting off some Christmas fireworks, and it's like right, unless it's a drone war happening right now. Maybe I should pause this and go look and see. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, just fireworks. Thought I was in a War of the World situation there for a second. I mean, hey, what's weird is that 1930s Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcast was in Jersey, I think. I think it was like maybe 30 miles from where all this is happening today. So, man, that's a weird tie-in too. But where was I at? I thought that was gunshots for sure for a second there. It sounded like a straight up shootout. It sounded like people like were on one side of my house shooting at somebody on the other side. But where was I at here? Aerospace companies, they get they get all these contracts for black programs. And some of these companies seem to operate above the government. They have these clearances, and a lot of them don't include government clearances. If you dig into whistleblower accounts, you start to come across this information. It's not even Boeing and Lockheed. Some of these have names you don't recognize, so there's that. And I apologize if you guys can hear these fireworks going off right now, but I'm going to keep on trucking. Um, there's rich guys, very wealthy people in private clubs who have personal islands, that George Carlin talked about. Some of them have historically been involved with some very Bruce Wayne type stuff. I want to put that on the table too. I know that sounds wild, but if you go back to the mystery airship sightings of the late 1800s, of which there are countless sightings, and there are countless newspaper articles on that, it seems like there were some steampunk billionaires in a secret airship club who decided to pull some Bruce Wayne double life type stuff and fly around the country in these strange airships, like something out of a Nikola Tesla paper. And in some cases, possibly literally based on something out of Nikola Tesla's work and his papers. And by the way, that this mystery airship thing sort of became inducted into UFO lore, but if you really look into it and you study it without bias, it seems like it was these rich guys. Because if you look deeper into that, there was this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen like rich boy club in DC at the time. Right around the time this mystery airship thing started popping up, you had this like billionaire boys club of the late 1800s happening. They had a headquarters they had a mansion in DC. It's still there. It's called the Cosmos Club. I'm going to show a picture of it. I think I actually have a picture of it here. Here we go. Cosmos Club. This building is still there to this day. It looks like something out of an Alan Moore League of an Extraordinary Gentleman comic book. This was founded in DC in 1878 and it's still around. Like I say, they were basically this was like a private club of distinguished men who were into the arts and sciences. Then the mystery airship waves break out all over the country. People reported seeing in the airships as they went by, they reported seeing guys in suits on this craft, perfectly human looking guys, distinguished gentlemen type guys in suits. This is a why I should do an episode on this. This is a wild. You could do a whole season of episodes on this because there's so much material with this. John Wesley Powell, we've talked about him on the podcast before. This is just a weird tie-in. He was a part of this Cosmos Club. He was one of the guys who destroyed the evidence of ancient civilizations in America as well. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now because I want to stay on the one we're on, but this ties in all these types, right? All these elite shadow elites, ties them all in. There's another group that predates the Cosmos Club though, called NIMSA. Comes out of 1850s Germany, and it seems to have inspired this group. So of course it goes back to Germany, right? And but NIMSA sort of kicked this off, I think, and it spread to America. That's how it seems. And so I've gotten to a point with this that where, I have to say, not everything is aliens and UFOs, of course. There's a very similar thing happening today, right? With these, instead of mystery drones, um, I'm sorry, there was, I jumbled up my words there. Like, you know what I'm trying to say. It's like today, instead of mystery airships, we have these mystery drones. These fireworks out here got me distracted. And this mystery drone thing, it's like it's unsolved. As far as I can tell, I mean, it's regarded as an unsolved mystery, or it's often regarded as a UFO flap. But when you start looking into it, there are a lot of human aspects to it. It doesn't seem like something ET when you really look deep into it. George Knapp even said recently, what if this is an unknown group of tech billionaires testing something out? And then you have the Michael Herrera case in recent years. That's from 2009 as well. I guess I say as well because that's when this Cliff High prediction happened. But Michael Herrera, he's in Indonesia. He's in the military. Something happened. Maybe it was a tsunami. They went out there trying to aid, I think, trying to help people. And I think they got turned around on their coordinates and they went up to a ridge, I think, to maybe see where they were at. Anyway, they went up to the crest of this hilltop and they looked over in the next valley over. They saw a saucer, a UFO that had landed there. He and his team goes in to check it out. They get ambushed by this black ops military group, like completely ambushed them. And these were trained guys. These were guys that were trained not to be ambushed, not to put themselves in that position and to put themselves in that situation of vulnerability. But these guys were very well trained, and they ended up letting Herrera and his team go. And I guess they didn't want to deal with killing them, you know. But Herrera says that they saw that thing take off. These guys got in the craft and it took off. And it took off like you would expect a UFO to take off. It was anti-gravity, rose up and just shot off. And he said it, when it did finally shoot off, it was like, extreme speeds, right? So, and I've listened to several interviews of his, and it's very compelling. He doesn't seem like he made it up at all. And he says too, like they had some sort of weird containers, like shipping containers. And it was just a weird thing for them to be there in Indonesia at that time. Herrera said he was wondering if it wasn't part of some human trafficking thing. Like they swooped into Indonesia to take advantage of the chaos in the wake of this tsunami, and maybe they were there for something. They were there using this event as a way to get in and get out. So, and he said that was speculation about the human trafficking part, but I just found it interesting. You know, I'll be honest, it pains me to do an episode where I do so much speculation, but I can only offer some educated guesses right here because I really don't know what's going on at the end of the day. I have my suspicions, but I don't know. Someone is possibly playing war games here and using the American public as the backdrop. I imagine if I or other researchers were to go and do a deep dive on the history of drones and just go through the contract bids between the aerospace companies, I do think someone would find something. I think there would be something compelling there that might hold clues to what is happening right now. But I think in the meantime, we really need to use this thing to empirically say no to drones. America needs to demand that no police or military drones are in our skies, especially following this event, because you don't want to beg the government for help and have them the only people in the skies patrolling with drones. You don't want police drones patrolling your neighborhood because this whole thing might be a deep state orchestrated event for these emergency powers. We don't want to go down the road of giving them these emergency powers because that's what this might lead to. We need to be very careful that we don't let our guards down and let them usher in a surveillance police state or anything post 9/11 Patriot Act style. Every American needs a copy of 1984 and they need to be prepared to fight back against that kind of stuff because there's a possibility that this is a stunt by the shadow government so that they can get more drone regulations, so that they can be solely in charge of all the drones. And they might be pushing for Patriot Act type laws so that they can be the only people in the skies flying drones. And, of course, at that point, it's just Big Brother. It's like I say, it's 1984. I think that whatever's going on here, there is always a faction of people in government who are wanting to take control. They see an opportunity, like Indonesia, for instance, if we're to believe that story. They see something chaotic is happening and they see an opportunity to go in and make some type of money or tighten their grip or take total control. You know, this is just a weird one. It really is. Last year, for over a week, there were drones flying over Langley Air Force Base. That was a problem. I'm not sure how that got resolved. Who knows if that's a psyop? But there are articles out. Wall Street Journal did one about this incident where these mystery drones swarmed a military base. That's their language in Langley for 17 days. Uh, the military appeared to be stumped by it. Who knows if that's even, but I mention that because one of the more interesting things that I've come across having to do with these drones is this podcaster who's also a remote viewer who I follow. She's actually supposed to be coming on the show soon, but she remote viewed the drones and did an episode about it. And I just found it interesting that one of the words that came up in her investigation and from her remote viewing session was Langley. So her name is Jessica Jones. And she wrote down a couple words from her session that was hoverboard, Patriot Act, okay? Scales of balance, I think was one. Rights, Black Mirror, Black Robot was one. Robot dogs, Harvard Boston experiment, and of course, Langley. Those aren't words that make me feel safe at all. So she put that out in a show on Spotify called Mystery Drones Over New Jersey, if anybody wants to check it out. And like when it comes to remote viewing, I'll just say, personally, I think that the mind is rather limitless. I I accept remote viewing as something that people can do. Not to mention our government has used remote viewers. President Carter talked about it. Third Eye Spies is a good documentary to go check out if you want to look into that. Like it's it's something that we are able to do if you learn. You know, like the name of this show, there's a sixth sense and there's all kinds of stuff that we're capable of doing that we've kind of lost over time, I think. Not to get too woo-woo on it, but I just want to say like I do some of the remote viewers I think do very compelling work, and I think she's one of them. And I think she's kind of honest and humble about it too. She seems to be. It's like I don't she didn't just come up with those words, I don't think. I think that she got those words out of a session. So, if you want to get even trippier with this, and I'll wind us down with this, there's an idea that black holes exist and that the inside of the black hole is a different dimension than the outside. And if it's moving around like a shape, you get this tesseract from the movie Interstellar. I think somebody came on and had a graphic of that. And Garrett King, I think, he showed that on this podcast before. It's like yeah, it's a tesseract. But anyway, there's an idea that some humans have been able to engineer a form of a black hole and recreate that here on Earth in our atmosphere. And this goes deep, but it gets into the disappearance of flight MH370, which there's satellite footage of that plane disappearing midair that a lot of very smart, very savvy, independent researchers have verified as legit footage from some sort of a satellite camera. And it's, this is aerospace stuff that we don't hear about, right? And it appears to have been taken. The plane appears to have been like morphed or taken into, I don't know what poof. It just got sucked into this like engineered black hole. It's what you see in the footage. And it's over the water. Maybe that aids in the process somehow. But I'll just say this. It might be the same aerospace group who might be associated with the Pentagon, who might know how to make drones come in and out of dimensions. If you want to get trippy with this. Because that footage of that plane disappearing in the sky had Pentagon written all over it and aerospace connections all over it. So we're heading into an administration here that has some very interesting ties behind the scenes to things in the sky, to aerospace as well. Trump started Space Force before Elon Musk endorsed Trump. He kept like I said, he kept his Space Force stuff or SpaceX stuff on Space Force bases. So those Trump Elon Musk ties, they go deep. Trump's uncle, John Trump, got the Nikola Tesla work after it was seized by the FBI after Tesla died. There's some very interesting stuff in there that I think the aerospace companies have been playing with all these years from Tesla's work. There was something in there about John Trump. I heard him in an interview talking about this. There was technology. Tesla had figured out a way to aim something at a moving object and bring it down from the sky. And they used that weird terminology too. They didn't say planes or helicopters. He said objects, to take objects out of the sky. So there's some very, very sci-fi, dystopia, high-tech stuff in those Tesla papers that made its way through the Trump family. So I think whatever happens, it's about to be very interesting. I'll cap it off with that for now. As always, break the mold, conquer the realm, and thanks for listening.